Patrick, we had a fantastic month of community calls, really focused on two topics. One was hearing from our various work group leads, which is such an integral part of the Odyssey community. Over between 30 and 40 different work groups that really allow people from all over the world and from different disciplines to find a home for their talents and their passions and a way to make an impact in our community. And we were able to hear from so many of them about their objectives and their key results and their mission for the coming year. What stood out about what you heard from so many of our different work groups?
Yeah, I think that the notion of our work groups as the kind of foundation of how we get work accomplished in Odyssey is something that is unique, and it's great to see so many leaders across our community standing up to share what they're doing. The basic idea behind our work groups is that anybody in the community who's got an idea of something that they think there may be shared interest in can raise their hand and say, I'd volunteer to lead an effort. As long as there's somebody else in the community that also wants to work on it, a work group is formed. And so throughout February, seeing all of the work groups share what their objectives were was great to see the diversity of thought and work that's going into areas around data standardization, methods research, open source development, and various clinical applications in various different subspecialties. What I particularly appreciated this year was seeing how so many of our work groups were trying to align with Odyssey Global's goals. At the start of the year, we set out an ambitious plan for us to be focused on guideline-driven evidence generation and moving that into evidence-driven data standardization, evidence-driven open source development, and evidence-driven collaborative education. And specifically as it relates to evidence generation, we've put a multi-month plan in place whereby we've tried to identify research questions, work on the phenotypes, figure out data fitness for use, develop analyses, generate and synthesize the evidence, and ultimately focus on dissemination. It was really exciting to see so many work groups hear that global objective and trying to figure out how they can make their own unique contributions. I think that's really helping to move many of those studies forward at the start of this year.
Yeah, great that you mentioned phenotype development, because obviously Phenotype February, our fourth installment of this community activity, was the other half of our community calls this month. Some really great work done by that leadership team. What were your reflections of Phenotype February this year?
So this year we did do something different that I thought was quite effective. We were motivated in our Phenotype February activity by the phenotypes that were required for us to generate evidence across the studies that were identified in January. And so this month, we actually heard from the various study leads who were going through the entire process of phenotype development evaluation. We had a session specifically centered on how to develop an appropriate clinical description. We went through the process of providing a nice mini tutorial on how to use Atlas to create concept sets and cohort definitions. And then we walked through the steps of using cohort diagnostics as a mechanism to evaluate a definition across a network of data sources. What I think that was really nice to see is how many studies made real demonstrative progress towards their own analyses. And we still have 10 studies that are continuing to be on track with moving forward, who've now made really substantial progress in identifying and clarifying their research question, constructing these study artifacts that are going to go into their analysis, and really galvanizing a team to work together towards shaping their problem. As we move into March, we're going to be able to assess data fitness for use, and I think that's going to provide a really great opportunity for even more folks in the community to get engaged.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I know that's going to be a part of a couple of the community calls. And like you said, a lot of work has been done, great work by these study leads who have identified these guidelines and areas that Odyssey can impact in our phenotype team. But now it's time really where a lot more members of the community can come together and be part of this work.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great time to hopefully inspire more folks to join our Odyssey Evidence Network. The Odyssey Evidence Network is going to figure prominently into our activities in March, where we're going to be taking these study ideas that we've identified in January, using the phenotypes that were developed in February, and we're going to actually be running those through to try to identify which data sources are appropriate for being potential collaborative partners in these studies. In addition to going through the process of like learning how do we do that, I think what we're also going to be able to do is think more holistically about the problem of data fitness for use, and try to galvanize the community in thinking about how we advance the science of data assessment alongside identifying data partners who can really become integral members of these studies as we move them forward throughout the rest of the year.
This month will also include a look at the most recent vocabulary refresh, which took place in February. Also, a discussion around the Book of Odyssey. So, a lot to look forward to in community calls and other updates around the community. Please check out the full newsletter for all the details. Thanks for joining, Patrick.
Thank you, Greg. Science!